I want to shout out this guy who has been awesome in sharing with us the perspective of somebody who's literally on the inside and dealing with this and going through it every day. And this is Luigi Morris. He's with Left Voice. He is a socialist. He's a lefty. He's a UPS part-timer. He's a Teamster. And it's really been interesting to see his perspective. So he wrote an article in Left Voice that there is momentum to fight for more. And he breaks it down. Now, right away, he tweeted, and I want to go over what his first thought was after seeing only the highlights. Now, he hadn't read the TA yet, but that despite some important gains, it doesn't meet many part-timers' expectations. We can definitely fight for more. Here are some of the areas where it falls short. $25 an hour minimum, right? Going from $15.50 to $21 is an important jump. But as part-timers, we were very behind on our wages. After decades of sellouts, $21 doesn't even catch up, which should be the bare minimum of inflation adjusted. Right? Part-time workers with seniority are especially frustrated because for them, under the TA, some who have been working 11 years and are already making $20.80 only get bumped to $23.55, little over $21 and way below inflation. Depending on seniority, part-timers will be paid up to $1.50 an hour extra, divided probably in 50 cents for each 5 years or something along those lines. So they're not really going to get $1.50 an hour. It's going to be based on seniority. Then this TA means that the two-tier system between part-time workers and drivers maintained. A top-rate driver will make $49 an hour by the end of the contract, while new part-timers will make around $23, less than half. Under the contract, inside workers would still have second-class status. We can't even say that our working conditions will be any better. Based just on the highlights, there's no new news of AC in the warehouses, nor any mention of making our 10-minute breaks any longer. Looks like we're still going to be guaranteed only 3.5 hours of work per day. There was no hazard pay during the pandemic. Despite exposing ourselves, risking our families' lives, keeping society running, and generating record profits for the company, the TA doesn't even include an essential workers bonus. We move over 20 million packages per day, 6% of the U.S. GDP, and 2% of the world economy. We make society run, a credible threat, secured all these concessions, but we have the power to strike and force UPS to give part-timers much more than what this TA offers. Part-time workers are the majority of the union, yet we're treated like second-class union members. We want real equality. This is why I wanted to speak up for Luigi Morris, and I feel like, and I'm glad he was interviewed, and I'll shout out Jordan Chariton for reaching out and interviewing him on Status Coup.
What?
Yep, I know. He says next week we'll be able to see the fine print of the TA and we'll have a more accurate sense of what the situation is. This is just a first approach with information that's available now. So it came out and they did release the TA. And I wanted to show this picture. And this is UPS part-timers at Griffin, Georgia. And you will see that on my thumbnail here. Here. That's one of them. They are vote no's. That's what that's all about.
Okay.
Right? So that's Griffin, Georgia. Let's first read his article, and then I want to show one other thing about the pilots and talk about the pilots and how I have a little bit of egg on my face, and I'm gonna eat a little crow here. But let's first get into Luigi stuff, because I can't shout Luigi out enough. I love his passion. I appreciate the fact that he's putting it all out there. He's risking his job by doing this, by the way. By writing all of this and being this critical, he could lose his job any day. Because UPS can do what Amazon's been doing, what Starbucks has been doing, and get rid of any workers that are speaking out and dissenting against the company, against the TA, and against the deal potentially happening. And I'm really hoping that they don't do that. Shout out to Luigi. And Dude, thank you. So his article, again, I think covers a lot of what he tweeted. About 340,000 workers were set to go on strike in what would be the biggest strike of its kind in U.S. history. Now that strike is on hold as workers read, debate, and vote on the TA. After years of stagnant wages and deplorable working conditions, UPS workers have been organizing around the clock to fight for their demands, including much higher starting salaries for part-time workers and ending the two-tier system. Many of these demands reflect conditions that are not just limited to UPS. Winning them would have implications for the struggles of other workers in this sector who face similar conditions of precarity, low wages, hazardous conditions, and weak contracts, if they have them at all, like FedEx workers, for example. Just the possibility of a strike at UPS has struck fear into the hearts of capitalists and politicians who stand to lose billions in profits from just one day of workers walking off the job. But it's also galvanized and inspired thousands of workers and activists who see that if the working class fights back with the sharpest tool at our disposal, the strike, we can win even the demands that bosses say are impossible.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Yeah, how about that? So Left Voice sat down with UPS part-timer Luigi Morris to discuss his impressions of the contract, what's next for this struggle, and why he's going to vote no. So they asked, with the announcement of a TA, given what we know so far, what does this mean for the workers? He said after they walked away from the bargaining table, stalling negotiations for 2 weeks, UPS and Teamsters bargaining team reached a TA Tuesday morning, and this means that we won't go on strike next week as we review the proposed contract and vote on it. We know that our determination to strike and our collective action within the last couple months, with practice pickets, meetings, and demonstrations, scared UPS to its core and have already forced it to make several big concessions after decades of major losses that lowered labor standards for UPS workers in the logistics sector. This is a contract that makes some gains. We also know that we have the support of the working class as a whole, as well as strong public support for our fight. People understand that UPS workers, along with Amazon workers and many others, were at the front line in the pandemic, risking our lives while the bosses made billions. We can't continue with the conditions we've been under for years, and now we're fighting for more. Yeah. So what are some of the important victories or steps forward? So they wanted to know this. He says, again, AC will be installed on all package trucks, but after January 1st, and fans will be installed in the truck's cargo compartments. This is not a small thing, especially as workers have been fighting for this demand. However, it only makes for the minimum amount of package cars fitted with AC to be 28,000, which is only a quarter of the current fleet.
Quarter of the fleet.
We saw somewhere else.
Half, I'm not gonna lie.
We saw somewhere else the 94,000 was thrown out there by Luis. That may be or may not be, but 28,000 during the life of the agreement. But we need to get these changes as soon as possible. We can't keep exposing and risking drivers and helpers to these conditions. We face record temperatures across the world this summer due to climate change. And stories of workers dying on the job from heat are becoming disturbingly more common. Remember that UPS driver Esteban Chavez Jr. died last year after collapsing in his truck from heat stroke.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The proposed contract certainly makes some significant changes to wages that have been degraded with years of inflation. When they released the highlights of the TA, it was worded in such a way as to make full and part-time workers think that we were going to get a $10.25 per hour raise through the life of the contract. But now that we've seen the actual language of the proposed contract, it's clear that we'll only get $7.50 over the next 5 years, and that includes an automatic bump of $2.75 in 2023. That's still well below inflation. Further, it's not clear what changes are being made to pensions across classifications and the different supplementals across the country. UPS was forced to make other important concessions, which the latest TA stipulates Martin Luther King Day will be a paid holiday. Yay, 8 hours of paid holiday for free. That we'll get 2 extra sick days, that we'll get more sure post on package cars, and more. And at the same time, there are many important shortcomings. So here's where we go. The biggest thing was the $25 an hour. Carol Tomei made $27 million last year. Meanwhile, part-time workers at UPS are living out of their cars, working 2 or more jobs, and hardly seeing their families. They're making poverty wages amid rising inflation. We deserve more. We're still national news, and there's still momentum to fight for more. Yep.
Any relation to Marissa Tomei?
Spelled differently. Yeah. Actually, this would be like Mel Torme because it had the accent over it, but he's Torme and this is Tomei. Mm. Part-time workers with seniority are especially frustrated. We talked about that. For them, under the TA, someone who's been working 9 years and is already making $17.85 an hour will only get bumped to $21.50. That's not much more than the new starting wage, and it's still way below what they should be making given how inflation ensures that our wages don't go as far and cost of living keeps going up. We heard a lot about the need to get rid of the 2-tier system among drivers, and it's an amazing win that it has come to an end with this proposed contract. I don't think it really has, but the TA maintains the informal 2-tier system between part-time workers and drivers because a top rate driver, like he says, will make $49 an hour by the end of the contract, while new part-timers will start with 21 and after 3 years will reach 23. They'll make less than half the wage of a full-time driver. And they work a maximum of, they'll get 3.5 hours a day. You're talking about less than $100 a day. Like, what does it cost you to get to and from work? Under the proposed contract, inside workers would still have second-class status, and it would create a new tier separating workers hired before and after August of this year. Yay! Even more separation of the workers. There are still big changes that have to be made to our working conditions. Based on the highlights from the TA, it does seem that we're going to get It does seem that we are going to get AC in the warehouse. Okay. In the midst of this massive heat wave, part-timers like me work in sweltering warehouses, packing boxes that weigh up to 70 or even 100 pounds. It's unsafe, it's inhumane, and we don't get paid enough to go home and rest afterwards. Many people work 2, 3, or more jobs just to get by, especially if they're only working 4 hours a day and not getting 40-hour-a-week wages. Within the proposed TA, we'll still only be guaranteed 3.5 hours of work a day, which doesn't translate to even a subsistence wage. We will still only get a 10-minute break, which is far from enough to rest from the backbreaking pace of inside work, to get out of the heat for a bit, and also to have time to go for food, drink, and use the bathroom. 10-minute breaks. I know I would need at least 15 minutes personally, but I'm not gonna go into exactly why, but I think you guys can. I think you could figure it out. There was no hazard pay, right? Many of the demands of part-timers have not yet been met. We should not be left behind with this contract. And I think that they are trying to pit the part-timers against the full-timers. All right?
Yeah.
The fact that politicians and media outlets are celebrating a possible strike being averted, claiming that the struggle is over, but in the end, only the workers decide whether the contract is ratified. So what's next? How do they decide? So Luigi breaks down that the full contract was just released. There will be meetings to discuss it, and the voting will start on August 3rd and last until August 22nd. If it is voted down, the negotiations will have to resume, and the possibility of a strike will be on the table again. When will Sean O'Brien put that on the table? Will he ever? I don't know. I hope he does, and I hope they vote no. All right. So far,
he's too busy transporting people.
So far, workers'
Chief
opinions.
O'Brien, 2 people to beam up.
That's Miles O'Brien.
Bro, they're an O'Brien, right?
Workers' opinions span the entire spectrum. Some workers are satisfied with the TA, while others have mixed feelings and are not totally decided yet. An important sector is unhappy with it and is planning to push for a no vote. But there is a general feeling that we could have fought for more. We were ready to strike. And
Yep.
shout out to our friend INN member Joe, who works at the Philadelphia Air Hub. He expressed that he thought that this would probably go through, even though he thought it sucked, and he would vote no.
Yeah.
The upcoming meetings, conversations at work, exchanges on social media, and the time we take to read the full TA will allow us to have a better characterization of where workers stand. We definitely need not only time, but democratic spaces to discuss every aspect of the contract, the gains, the limits, and what we want to fight for. And you're certainly welcome to come and do that here on How Do We Miss That, because we've been doing that for the last hour and a half already. I told you we'd go deep on this.
Yep.
Right? And I got a little bit more. We need to organize spaces where we don't only passively listen to reports about the TA, but where we openly share our different opinions and plan next steps. Within our ranks, one of the weaknesses we have to overcome is the lack of organization among part-timers. It's very important that warehouse workers create democratic avenues to reflect on the proposed contract, debate it, and make our own decisions about the way ahead. It's the only way we can know for sure that the contract works for us. Of course, this is challenging because we all have exhausting shifts and most of us have 2 or 3 jobs. Many workers are also mothers and have double the work of raising their kids and earning enough money to pay the bills. Our bodies are usually broken. Sometimes we have parking lot meetings, which are a good space for discussion and debate, but we need to find other creative ways to discuss as a collective and to strengthen the unity between drivers and part-timers that is so vital to unite our struggle in the power of a single fist. I would say using spaces like Discord or Gilded or Slack, but although Slack is corporate and could potentially be compromised and you would have to be careful. Again, Luigi says, I think there was no need to rush to a TA just a few hours after resuming negotiations. I cannot agree more and scream at my microphone enough about why they waited, why they still had 5 days and they had to do that now.
Yep.
There were still 6 days before the strike was set to begin. We could have definitely taken what was good and continued to use the threat of the strike to pressure UPS to even greater concessions. And if they didn't meet those demands, we were ready to strike. UPS was working against the clock, not us. The threat of strike was powerful because of the strategic role that UPS workers play in the economy. Withholding our labor would have not only caused billions of dollars in losses for UPS, but it would have also disrupted the entire economy. This would have put the government in a tough spot, caught between wanting to ensure that capitalist profits flow and Joe Biden's posturing as a friend of organized labor movement to win back a working class social base to the Democratic Party ahead of the elections. We had all the leverage in our favor to have a historic strike. We would have joined the over 160,000 workers who are already on strike and who are already sending us their solidarity. There could have been over 500,000 workers on strike. That's what the working class needs to fight back. Our strike would have even involved UPS pilots who swore not to cross the picket line by flying UPS packages. Thank you, Luigi. This is the only guy, by the way, in all those articles, in all these articles, and everything that we covered, by the way. How many times did you see the word pilot mentioned?
Not many.
0 is the answer. None of them talked about the pilot solidarity, which to me was the key that brought them back to the table. UPS was eager to avert a strike that could cost the bosses billions of dollars and set the bar higher for the next contract negotiations. The politicians are happy that they may not have to deal with working class unrest. That's why we won the concessions that are already in the TA. That's the power of our collective action, and it's power we can't give up now. Our most powerful weapon is the strike. It's also the reason why workers should consider voting no on the current agreement. If we actually use that weapon, we could win all our demands, including getting part-timers as a starting wage of $25 an hour. Vote no. Again, that's Luigi Morris, Teamster, UPS part-timer, left voice photographer, and journalist.